Hi, my name is Kayla White. I am the Cass High School American Literature Data Team and PLC Leader and Facilitator. So ideally, I will be able to present this data to my American Literature PLC at the beginning of the year during pre-planning for us to take a good close look at our demographics, some attendance trends that we're seeing and how those may correlate with our American Literature ESD data from the state level as well as the district. So the first thing we need to look at is our school improvement criterion. For the last couple of years, we have been noticing very low Lexile levels in reading levels across the board. Roughly 50% of our students are 2 and 3 grade levels behind. Therefore, we see a correlation with that in regard to our American Literature EOC scores. So our goal is to increase those proficiency levels, which have been aligned with the county elected essential standards and objectives for those American Literature EOCs, and hopefully this will build literacy within our district and our school. So for this particular presentation, we're going to be reviewing demographic and attendance data and trends at Cass High School for the years of 2016 through 2019. We're going to look at the American Literature and, of course, results from those years and compare them to the district and state levels. We're going to discuss some observations and insights as to those correlations in the demographic and attendance data. And then we're going to think about some instructional strengths and weaknesses, which hopefully we already can see, and these can propel and guide our conversations for opportunities for student learning to increase those proficiency levels and reading levels regarding that American Literature EOC. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the demographic and attendance data. As we delve into this, there are a few questions I'd like you to consider. We need to focus on who our students are. We need to know exactly who our students are and in which populations they fall. We also need to look at factors outside of the school which can help us understand our demographic, and then what programs those students are involved in and how that may affect or impede those EOC results. And then we need to take a very close look at our programs and see how successful they actually are in attaining the academic standards that the county has aligned. All right, so here's a little bit of our student demographic by race and ethnicity. So as you can see here, we are predominantly white here at Cass High School, a little above the 60% range. We have gone down a little bit as our population enrollment as a whole has decreased a bit. We have about 15 to 20% Hispanic and Black populations with a very small amount of Asian and multiracial populations. One thing to note here is the gradual increase that we're seeing with our Hispanic and Black students. Okay, based on our programs and specific student demographics, rather, we are pretty equivalent when it comes to male versus female, that ratio. We have about 10% of students who fall within the students with disabilities, and you'll see that as well matches with our gifted students. But one thing that is rather alarming just in regard to our socioeconomic students and the disadvantages for that are that we are around the 50% mark when it comes to those students who are eligible for free and reduced lunches. And I do think, as you can see, this is going down slightly through the years, but again, our population has also decreased slightly. And then our limited English proficient students are going up a bit, but still very limited amount of students there. But when we have a higher number of Hispanic students as our population is growing in that subgroup, then we could expect to see these English language learners also increasing. Okay, so here's our Cass High School enrollment by programs. All right, couple things. Here's our 10% gifted students and special educated students. Here you can see this very much of an incline here from the year of 16-17 to 18-19 in students who are in the ESOL program. And that is interesting to note considering our population as a whole enrollment has gone down. Our Hispanic and English language learners is going up. The vocational labs. This is interesting to see roughly 70% here, 60-70%. Students are enrolled in career readiness programs. So this could indicate that we in Bartow County are a little bit more on the side of career readiness with less students college bound. All right, attendance. Okay, so here are a few graphs of our absences. Keep in mind that, again, our enrollment has gone down since 16-17. But what I do like here, because it's easy to see just consistencies with absences. You know, if we look at the chronic absenteeism, which is down here, because our population is primarily white, you will have more students who are white being chronically absent. However, it can be alarming at some points to consider how much lower our Hispanic, multiracial, and Black populations are, and how still those percentages are close to our white population. Now, I really like this chart. I did some highlighting here to really look at the changes through the years. The only increase that we've really noticed from 16-17 to 2018 and 19 is with the Black population. It has increased slightly with the chronic absenteeism. In our Hispanic population, although we are getting more Hispanics enrolled at Cass High School, this is actually showing to go drastically down from 17 and then kind of balancing out here within the last 2 years. So just some things to note. Primarily our students are at school, which is great. However, we still do have, slightly an issue with attendance. So we need to continue to encourage parents to be involved and take active roles in motivating their students and engaging students, as well as teachers being culturally responsive to meet those students where they are in authentic and relevant ways. All right, personnel data. I'm going to fly through this really fast. Most of our teachers are female and most are white. This has not changed very much within the last few years, other than the fact that we have gone down slightly with the amount of teachers we have, but also our population enrollment has gone down too. Okay, personal data by experience. As you can see, roughly 45 to 50% of teachers are midway into their career at 11 to 20 years. And then you kind of split the difference on the other 50%, with about 30% of teachers being veteran versus novice teachers. And this is kind of remaining consistent. So we have a nice diversity there. Most of our teachers hold a master's degree and specialist and bachelor's. There are several that have achieved that as well. Okay, so some major takeaways. We educate roughly 1,700 students a year. Gender is very close to equivalent, while 50% of our students are socioeconomically disadvantaged. And that, as you will see soon in latter slides, does correlate with lower EOC scores. Many students are involved with vocational training. Again, this indicates a large uptick in career readiness versus college-bound students, with 10% being gifted and talented and 10% being in the special education program. Since 2016, our population has remained fairly consistent at 60% white students and 15 to 20% Hispanic and African American students. However, our Hispanic population is increasing ever so slightly each year. The majority of students are frequently present. This is a trend that is remaining stable each year, between 6 and 15 absences. It's still a lot though, and so we need to take a look at that. And then our Hispanic chronic absences have improved, while our Black chronic absences have increased just a bit. So we need to take a look at those subgroups there. And then we have an abundantly high amount of white educators, while 50% are in the middle of their careers, and most have obtained a specialist degree or a master's degree. All right, let's look at the student achievement data. So we do need to pay particular attention to our weaknesses and strengths and how those compare at the district and state levels. We need to think about within our PLC groups what practices we currently have in place for collaborative inquiry, and then our essential standards and our instructional practices. Do they advocate for those areas of weakness? Do we know when students have earned proficiency, and then what do we do when they have not? How do we remediate? And then what are some ways in which we can improve our instructional delivery and data analysis to progress student learning? All right, so quickly, our American Literature achievement data. So as you can see, the total number of students tested here was fairly high, 17-18, a little bit lower, 16-17, and then drastically lower in 18-19, as correlates with our population enrollment. However, we still have a very low number of distinguished learners, and most of our learners are in the developing category. Okay, so we would love to see these beginning and developing learners become proficient, and hopefully those trends can, we can start seeing that if we start targeting the areas of weakness. All right, the state and district levels. Okay, so there's a lot of numbers to crunch here, a lot of data to grapple with. However, very quickly, some things that we have noticed. Across the board, Cass High School ranks with most students in each year being developing learners. Very low distinguished learners. We are lower at each year for distinguished learners at the district and state level. Unfortunately, not meeting. We are higher in our beginning learners than the state and district levels. So those are some things that we definitely need to work on. There's definitely room for growth here, and we need to look at those state and district levels to figure out, you know, some things that they're doing well and where we can improve, while also taking in, you know, our demographic and realizing who our students are. Okay, this is just a quick indicator that our white females perform better than our Black or African American Hispanic males. And as you can see, there's a direct correlation with economically disadvantaged learners and those students with limited English proficiency being at the beginning and developing stages for that EOC. All right, on to shed some positive light, we are doing well with our graduation rates. In 18-19, we only missed target with our Black or African American student population by a couple of points here. So that is good. And then our limited English proficiency levels and economically disadvantaged. So those are very, very high target areas that we need to address throughout this year. All right, so big takeaways. We do have very low numbers of distinguished learners. Most are developing, and they're equal parts beginning and proficient. So we need to drive home these specific subgroups who are scoring lower, which we know to be our limited English proficiency students, our lower economic status students, and then our Hispanic and Black males. We do perform lower than the district and state levels, with the most students each year performing in the developing category. Okay, now as we're moving forward, the next steps, the questions that we need to ask ourselves, with such a high amount of white educators, are our teachers culturally diverse enough? Are we utilizing professional developments to ensure that our teachers are prepared to meet and bridge those gaps with those students, to make those lessons authentic and relevant and meaningful? So have we looked at the district and state levels to compile some best practices, especially the district level? I think this is being lower than the district. We have some room for growth in collaborative inquiry or collaboration, where we could see some trends and develop some protocols and ideas. Encouraging parent involvement with a special focus on our Hispanic and African American populations. We've got to get these students present at school. That way we can remediate, accelerate, focus on these essential learning standards so that these students can perform higher on the American Lit EOC. We do have that low socioeconomic status with 50% of our students. So how do we intervene enough to help students not necessarily control the outside variables, but work with those variables to further their learning capacity in the right ways? Are we meeting those students where they are? And within our PLC groups, we need to focus specifically on collaborating intentionally. We need to plan these lessons and assessments centered, of course, around our county elected essential standards, but we need to do so in rich ways and talk to each other about best practices, remediate effectively, and of course use data to drive our instruction. And if we continue to do this, I'm hoping that within the next couple of years, we'll see some improvements with our EOC scores and reading and Lexile levels. Thank you for watching.